Under promise, over deliver. A lot of people making grand accusations, grand goals, and none of it happening. That should tell you all something. All right, let's just move on to this Friday's episode. I had a couple news items, but we're already past 11 o'clock. This Friday, I continue to say I think this is a very important disappearance that Unfound is covering. It's not very well known at all, but as is usually the situation with us. But as soon as I heard about David Schroeder's disappearance from Bryce Prairie, Wisconsin, September 22nd, 2012, and talked to his wife, I thought there's something about this that I think is going to help us understand many other disappearances that we've already covered, and probably is going to be one that I'm going to continue to reference from now to the end of time. David Schroeder, a 45-year-old, had some health problems. Big fella, 6'5", 300 pounds. But in the days before his disappearance, he told his wife that he just didn't feel like himself. Something was going on. He had forgotten to pick up a child. He was a bus driver, forgot to pick up a child on the Monday before his disappearance. On Wednesday, he blew off part of his route, his bus route, to go see his doctor, like without an appointment, just kind of showed up. And the doctor decided to give David a medical excuse to take off a few days because of some things that was going on with David. The doctor said that David was crying in the doctor's office. And so David took off those couple days. So that was Wednesday. So we come to Friday. He and his wife had a great day. They have children, but they spent the day together doing some shopping. David seemed great, seemed fine, no problems at all. And then that night, it seems David turned into a totally different person. He was supposed to pick their one foster child up and then pick his son Devin up and then come home. Instead, he picked up his foster child. And the foster child, who was actually 18 years old, partied the night away. He blew off picking up his son Devin and said David took this 18-year-old foster kid to a bar. David got drunk. They went to a Hooters. They got kicked out of there because of the way David acted. David then, once the Hooters shut down, he tried to break into the place. Then went to Walmart, and he and this foster kid, whose name was Robert, they spent the rest of the night fishing. Once again, David leaving his real son stranded at a football game in another town. The next morning, when David and this foster child, Robert, finally come home, and his wife confronts David, he claims it never happened. Says that I never went out last night. I was home all night. That's what he did. They ended up going to a church event that Saturday. David continued to act very oddly. His wife brought him home. Left the rest of the family at this church event. She went back to get them an hour later when she came back home. And her plan was to take David to the emergency room because she said, this is just... He's lost his mind. Come home, David's not there. Never to be seen again. No evidence that there was no car that he could have driven. He left his wallet there. He left his phone there. It seems that he had put on a jacket that's still missing. It seems he put on this jacket that he liked before he left. Lived in a small community. It was daylight out. Neighbors did not see him walk away, did not see any cars pull up. And this disappearance is still unsolved almost 9 years later. But what we're going to concentrate on is that change in behavior of David that night. He's great all day, same old David, being fine, was totally fine when he left the house. And as soon as he picked up his foster child in the one town where the foster child was, he became a different person and continued to be that different person until he disappeared. Never heard anything like it. And we've had some unusual stories on Unfound, but this, I'm just telling you, I just think we're going to be referencing this one for a long time, because I think what it's going to cause us to do is look back at some of these other disappearances where people seemed fine, and then there's no proof there was foul play, but it's hard to understand that person would have disappeared because the person seemed fine. Eric Alvarado, maybe, as an example. Gayla Shaper as an example. Kaya Taylor as an example. Joshua Guimond as an example. And here we have now a documented situation where a person was perfectly fine when he left the house, but by the time he picked one of those kids up, he'd flipped. To the point when he was confronted by it the next morning, he claims that all that stuff the previous night never happened. It's going to be noteworthy. I'm telling you right now. But it'll be up for all of you to decide. And that's why this episode is being called For Your Consideration. Once again, David Schroeder. It looks like Schroeder. It's Schroeder. September 22nd, 2012, Bryce Prairie, Wisconsin. His wife, Carla, will be the guest. She did a great job. So that's all I got for tonight with 2 separate videos. I'm glad we were able to keep it all together, even with like a 10-minute pause in there. So what did we do? Talked about disc golf. Talked about my ace. Talked about getting the next second shot of vaccine next week. Don't forget my very good friend Suzanne De Laurentiis' show, Suzanne Saturday Night Scares, on Amazon Prime. I want you to check it out. My weight's going good. I'm looking fantastic. The Anderson poll, Adventures with a Purpose, turned us down. Season 2, Volume 2, Unfound Now, Dr. Telesco, Sabermetrics and Statistics for Disappearances. Megan Linez documentary. Took some great questions. Finish it up with a preview of David Schroeder. That's all I got. Man, we made it through even with the power going out. I'm so happy. Thank you all tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And that's all I got. I'm thinking the Ed Covers Disappearance is classy. Thank you, Coffee. I didn't read some of these. Hold on. Let me read some of these. Thank you, Coffee. You're very kind. Shree says, I got it out. Thank you for all your understanding.